Hello and welcome to the Winners Find a Way show. I am your host, serial entrepreneur Trent M. Clark. I'm also the author of Leading Winning Teams. I am a growth coach and owner of Leadershipity, all those idiots of leadership that we always talk about. And probably most people know me because besides starting 14 companies, I coached for over 12 years in professional baseball coaching in 3 World Series. And today on the Winners Find a Way show, my good friend, Ali Cox from Noble West and Olympian. So, Ali, super excited to talk some shop today.
Thanks for having me, Trent. I like it.
I know it's gonna be so good. So Ali Cox and I were in world championships in the same year. I won a World Series in 2002. Ali Cox, right there for the world championship in rowing. Is that accurate?
That's right.
What was your sport? Like, what was your crew? Was it 8, 6? What was your sport?
So my boat class, the sport was rowing. My boat class was I've rowed every size of boat, except for the single international aim competition. But at the Olympics, I made the women's 8.
The women's 8. Okay, nice. All right. We were just talking offline about boys in the boat and the 8. Man, and it's there's a lot more dynamics, right? Obviously, more people, more issues. Just like in our businesses, you own Noble West, right?
Yeah.
More people, more challenges, right? So
yeah. Except for then you have scale. Let's not forget about that. Then you have scale, and when you do have scale in a business, and I think a lot of this reminds me of being in the 8, is that you have more tools to use in your toolkit. So just like in an 8, there are some women in the boat who are incredible technicians. There are some women who are like more power, like I was a power position. So like, how to utilize different people for different scenarios and also like different conditions. If you're on rowing on a body of water that has a traditional certain kind of wind or condition, you need a certain type of rower. So if you're rowing somewhere there's typically a big tailwind, you probably want a lighter crew that are really great at technique. They don't have to be terribly strong. But if you are rowing somewhere where there's typically a headwind or some sort of water change, you want more power people in the boat. So, and for me, that is very similar to client services and running a marketing and advertising agency, because I'm constantly casting the team and priming the team based on the needs of our clients or the opportunity or the challenge or whatnot. So that definitely, I always kind of take that into consideration.
Well, we have to know our variables and our conditions, right?
There you go.
I really love that. I love that idea and understanding that. And as a 5th generation California farmer, I mean, we're going to talk a ton about food quality because that is on everybody's mind right now in the States. Like, it's what we've been through on that and what we're learning about how bad our foods really are. And it's been out there a long time, right? We've always had an index of what we're at. And I think the challenge is what we learned may not have been exactly what we probably should have learned, right? So you are now, you're married to another fellow athlete. Sports is a big part. 2 boys. You're up in Northern California and still own farms. So you're still heavily involved there, correct?
For sure. Yeah, we own active farms. So we grow almonds, walnuts, tomatoes, beans. We have beef cattle, different kinds of row crops. We also have a farm management business and a harvesting business. So we're very entrepreneurial on all sides. Like I say, for us, we own 5, between my husband and I, we have 5 businesses. So we're constantly kind of evolving and moving, and it's a balancing act. And we have kids that are super busy. We have 3 sports just today that we're going to be going to. So, it is what it is, and it's beautiful and a mess all at the same time. And I'm here for it.
Yeah. I love it. And it's, listen, this is the new way of the entrepreneur, right? You see value. And in fact, I mean, Noble West, like you said, you're very focused on the advertising for and working in marketing for ag, for people in the state. So you're kind of keeping this this kind of lane, and you're keeping and staying in that lane a little bit after working, after your Olympic days and your competitive days, being discovered as an athlete down at University of San Diego. You did 10 years with IMG, New York City, the Big Apple. I mean, how was that? You transitioned from an athlete, great transition, IMG, which is a great company. represents a lot of athletics. They do tons of things though. They own a lot of different things. People don't really know how much they're engaged in investing in sport and recreation and athletics and obviously pro, amateur, high school, all sorts of different things.
Yeah.
I had a friend who sold a company to one of their brands. So, probably learned a ton while you're sitting there in New York. Is that fair?
Yeah. I mean, so I wasn't there for the full 10 years. I also worked at Ketchum Public Relations, and I also started my first business within that 10 years. But I mean, I think that I learned a lot of soft skills and also incredible hard skills. One of the first soft skills that I learned was my interview that I had, speaking of academies, I think you were getting to some of the properties that they own, was in Bradenton at the IMG Academies. It was a tennis club. And I showed up in July in Florida, full on wearing a suit, thinking this is what you wear to a job interview. And I got there and the guy I was interviewing with was like, "What are you wearing?" And he's like, "Do you know it's July and August? July in Florida." I'm like, "I know, I'm hot." And he's like, "Okay, just go." He's like, "Do you know how to play tennis?" I was like, "Yeah, I know how to play tennis." He's like, "Okay, just go buy something in the store and come back in like normal clothes. And then you can come play tennis with my kids and I." So my interview was like, a full day. I thought I was there for like 20 minutes, like in a suit. It was a full day of hanging out and seeing how like vibes, culture, could I hang? Luckily I was, I still play tennis to this day. And he was the CEO of IMG, and now he's on my board and is awesome and has been an incredible mentor for 20 plus years. So I think there's like soft and hard skills that you learn that like really evolve. And that was definitely part of IMG and my education. But the other part was really like just knowing how critically important a network is and how to foster a network. And networking is not going into a room where you don't know anybody that's called a networking event. For me, it's more about like creating friends, growing my snowball, it's like you're not finding partners, you're finding people that you just want to like support and help. And I feel like that is really what I learned at IMG, probably the most out of all the hard skills that I did learn, which I did. I learned how to contract, I learned how to write a deck, I learned how to sell. I was trained by the best of the best. But I think that how you manage your network and how you support and show up is probably the most critical lesson that I could have ever learned that set me up for success in all my other businesses that I founded.
Yeah, I think a couple of great things right there, right? Like the soft skill of being who you are and knowing who you are, right? Like, yes, I have capability. I'm an athlete. I can get out on the court and swing a little bit with the kids and play, and this would be fun. And they're diving into who you really are as a culture and a person and how you see yourself and how you're going to carry yourself in that environment, which is awesome. And how you adapted, right? Like they're checking that too. Are you going to adapt? Can you throw on a tennis skirt and a blouse and go hit some balls with some good shoes, you get out of the heels, right?
Yeah.
And so that's a huge one. On the other side, we talked a little bit about this offline, right? I mean, winners find a way. Like these are the only people I surround myself with in my inner circle. And I got people who don't want to find solutions and get all, they get all bent out of shape when things aren't going their way and they're sulking around. And I'm like, wait a minute, what actions are you taking to remedy the situation? Besides woe is me and I'm a victim and like, man, I have no time for that. Like we have so much to do. There's no time to cry in our beer here and figure out like, well, someone should feel sorry that my contract didn't work out. Like, listen, man, like no one feels sorry. No one's coming for you. Like we've got to figure it out. We got to handle these challenges. And so, I love the quote, right? Winners, when shown data that they are losing, find a way to win from the 4 disciplines of execution. So let's walk us through that, Ali. Walk us through that time in your life where you had that situation like, hey, things aren't looking good, and you're getting a lot of data that goes, this isn't working out the way I was supposed to work out.
Yeah.
What do you do? Sure. How do you manage that? Walk us through.
Yeah. Well, I think that Trent, where I know you kind of come from and like probably what's informed like your POV on this professionally, probably you learned as a kid, right? Like sports are the most incredible opportunity to learn resilience and to learn mental toughness. And like, who cares if you struck out in the 6th inning? The game might be on the line in the 9th. Like, don't, like my dad always had this term, like, he's like, don't get your dauber down. And everybody's like, what's a dauber? He's like, who cares? But don't throw the game away in the 5th inning when who knows what your team's going to need from you in like an hour, in like 3 innings. And that is something that I feel like from this tons and tons and tons of sports as a child. I mean, I was a 12-time letterwoman in high school. Like, I played every varsity sport starting when I was a freshman. So like, just like understanding pressure and opportunity, and today's another opportunity. And that's what I always say that's what I say every morning when my feet hit the ground. It's also what I said every single time I got to a starting line in rowing. It's what I learned in high school to say, like, now's an opportunity. And I think my high school softball coach might've been like, we have an opportunity here to prove people wrong, to improve ourselves, to improve our team, to improve our position in the lineup, all the things. And that's what I try to teach my kids too. Like, everything's an opportunity. And you're lucky you didn't make the all-star team this year as a 9-year-old, because guess what? You need more time on the tee. You need more time to like really focus. And like, the best thing that could happen to you now is not making it as a 9-year-old to set you up for success in the long term. So, but those lessons I feel like carry over so easily from sports. And that's why, I mean, I'm going to be honest, when I'm interviewing people and I see that they played college sports or whatnot, I'm like, it's like they already get like a star, and it's like, okay, yeah, bring them to me. I want to meet them. Like, at least I know they know resilience, because things aren't going to be always pretty and easy here. So, I think that's just like kind of part of it. So, but as far as obviously, I mean, I've been in business now for 18 years. So there are some there are some milestone moments where like shit was hitting the fan and it really could have just stayed there, but I pulled it in or let things go that I'm happy to talk about too.
Yeah. And I think as you talk about that, that's what my book is really about. Leading Winning Teams. It's about all those lessons from sport that absolutely translate into the work world, right? They absolutely, because we want team players. We want people with adaptability. We want people that understand coachability. We want people that understand the responsibility of their role. And they've had to do that. And they've had to see times where it changes. 1 minute you're this in the boat, right, Ali? And now, like you were just describing, the role just changed because the conditions changed. So you're either out of the boat strategically because we need someone else. We don't need the power today, or we need you in a different seat because we're going to need the power here and not there. And so it changes. And I think as you talk about that resiliency, it's one of the things that was a real powerful message of the Boys in the Boat movie, which was, hey, I've got these kids and they're from hard homes. Like they're from not much. They've been living in cars. They're resilient kids. They are here fighting for the opportunity. They will not be entitled, and they will not overlook the moment, because they understand like it's going to take everything they got, and they are unafraid of taking a risk for everything on the line, because they've been there. And I think part of this pro athlete, you've probably seen it at the Olympic level, part of this athlete that sustains this high level is that their athletic world isn't everything. They have been through life conditions that are way worse than this. They're like, oh, we got to go practice and row 20 miles today. Like, whatever, not a big deal to me, because I've gone without food for 2 days. Like, where there's no food security. My family, I'm looking at my little sister going, man, I got to do something. Like, you think I'm worried about getting in a boat? Like, this is easy to me, right?
Yeah. And that, I mean, Trent, like that was my husband's story. So like, that is definitely was his story. He was, born from migrant parents, and like, that was definitely his story. And he is who he is because he has incredible coaches who were life mentors, not just sports mentors, and his whole career. In fact, his coach set us up. So, and I came from, honestly, kind of like white privilege, like a very like healthy, stable home where the next meal was never my concern. That was a given. Nor was being able to afford, equipment, or no questions how I was going to get to the game. I mean, just like those basic sort of things, which I wish more children had that luxury, frankly. But what I will say is, even though I did, like, so a story, I was invited, so my ergometer score was really good my first year that I rode, which was my sophomore year of college. So the rowing machine, the coach is like, okay, sit in here and pull as hard as you can for this many meters. And my score just was very competitive. Like I'm 6 feet tall. I've got long arms. I'm proportionally very, I look like a rower, like my legs aren't too long. Everything's just physically, this is what you want to look like. Could have used maybe another inch or two, but we'll leave that there. And
I know that world better. I know
on my stat sheet,
yeah.
But I'm really 5'11" and a half. So anyway, I am there. They're like, come down to your first pre-leap camp. Okay, so it's me coming in my car from University of San Diego, driving to Chula Vista to the Olympic Training Center. There are athletes there from Harvard and Yale and Princeton and University of Washington, and huge rowing program, Michigan, huge rowing programs. And I'm like, cool, this is fun. I'm like vibing, and we get on the water, and I'm like losing. And I don't really know how to seat race yet, which is like how you compete for a seat is 2 boats go, you switch partners, they race again, they see who's faster. You switch again, you see who's faster. And then by the end of it, you can see who's the fastest rower because who wins with the most people. So who's the most adaptable? So who's the toughest? I mean, it's all sorts of things. Who can like adapt to whomever, right?
I love it.
I, at that point, don't even know that I should be pulling hard. And so the coach pulled me aside. She's like, here's the deal. You have to pull hard from the first stroke, like not when you feel like it at the end, like the first stroke. And I was like, oh, okay, got it. And then I did it and I earned a seat. And that summer I was sent to Denmark with 3 other women, and we raced and we won our first gold medal, and it was incredible. Now, would it have been helpful if I was maybe a little scrappier understanding that? For sure. I didn't know that. I kind of maybe was just a little privileged. I just walked into my seat at USD, whatever. But I would say that that's where coachability really matters. And like, if you're coachable and if you're open to feedback and you don't get your nose bent out of shape and all that, then great things happen to great people who work hard and set goals and try. And I would say that is something that like I feel like I've sort of instilled. And I try to think of myself when I see like somebody on my team here, I'm like, listen, you say you want this, but you're not really you're not demonstrating to me that you actually want to say like work for the goal you've set or the thing you think you want. Like you want to make this much money, but your actions don't show me that you're actually ready for it. And like, I try to put myself in that as like, I'm going to give you some coaching now. I hope you take it. And a lot of people don't take it well and then they quit. And then some people, the stars, are like, give it to me. I want to know what you have to say. Yeah. And I love that.
That's cool. Yeah, I think that it's amazing as you talk about that. Like, first of all, I've never heard privilege and farmers in the same word ever. Like ever. I mean, because this is a world like earned, never given. Like you have to sow the fields. If you don't, you yield no harvest. Like this is not something you can shortcut and go, well, you know what? Like we'll just do some other way. Like there's no shortcut, right? So it's
really
like,
there's not.
Yeah. So I've never heard those 2 words together, by the way, ever. So as I go through that though, everything you described though is understanding that no one's going to come do it for you. You'll have to earn it. I have this famous line that I read all the time, right? You're responsible for your results.
Yeah.
Because I can't be responsible for
I love that.
Ali Cox's stuff. Like, I mean, like, hey, I'd love to coach her up, and I can do that because the last thing I actually want, Ali, as your coach, is like, oh, Ali Cox went out and got the gold. Oh, so Trent won gold because I was coaching her. Well, does that mean am I going to be responsible when she finishes 4th?
No, like as a coach, you're just going to own up to the failure.
Yeah, like like that's what you do as a coach. You're just like, hey, we own the failures and we endorse the successes. Right?
Athletes got the success. That is a great coach.
Because that's what you do as a business owner too, right? You do the same thing
every single day. None of the things that go right are because of me, right? And that's okay. I'm here for it. And I always say, this is a small business. This is a boutique agency. If you succeed, I succeed.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's athletics too. And I think that's really important. I had a lot of conversations with athletes when I was coaching, especially the top class, right? Where, I've got the best 1% of athletes in the world. I mean, it's uncanny, right? And they're like, man, you're just giving me a hard time because this is what the front. I'm like, man, I'm giving you a hard time because I want you to reach your potential, and we're aligned here. Like, if you stay here and become better, I look good as a coach, and you stay. Like, the moment you don't perform well, or you're injured and haven't done the work to prepare for what's about to happen out there, we look bad as a staff. So like, we're aligned. And I had a lot of athletes did not understand that, Ali, just as a lot of employees don't see that either.
Yeah, on the Olympic team for rowing, you always know when you're going to get cut. It's when your coach isn't coaching you.
That's right. I'd say this a lot.
And with a megaphone. And it is brutal, but like, if coach isn't coaching you and you're just moving around seats, either you stay there and you just be you just be the seat filler, but it's coming. Yeah.
I tell a lot of players, when the coaches stop talking to you, the end is near.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. And this is the same for employees too, by the way. If you're an employee out there and like, hey, you know what? I don't really like the feedback. I don't, I don't want to know what I'm not doing well. Like, watch out, because like, one, they're questioning coachability immediately. And then two is like they want you to reach potential. And when people say, hey, I don't really want to be a coach, that also says, hey, I don't want to advance inside the company because I'm not going to get an opportunity to do that, because you're going to stay the same in their eyes because nothing's going to change. So that's a challenge. And then when we get to that point where you see the owner or your coach is coaching everybody else except you, it's probably pretty close to the end. They are going to look for someone to fill that role that's going to take the feedback and keep progressing. Is that fair?
I think that's mostly fair. I think there's a few there, and I've done a few exceptions. I've done a lot of work, and I'm an organizational management junkie at this point. There's no book that I haven't read or podcast. I think the real exception is if you have an incredible independent contributor, like they are such a producer, or they are so skilled at their little nuanced thing and they love it, and they're unlocking situations that and they're unlocking work and deliverables that you're so important. And they're not necessarily a manager type. They're not super social. They just want to do the work. You got to let them be, right? Like, I think in baseball, do you really need your relief pitcher to be everybody's best friend?
Yeah. Nope. Nope. Let them do their thing. Nope. But I will tell you that, and I'll push back on this in a little bit. In the way that sometimes I sit with that reliever on a plane ride, and we have one of the most impactful hour discussions, and the feedback is very small. It's very minute, and it has massive impact, because I don't need to tell him a lot. I need to give him one little instruction and point him in the direction he's going, because like you said, they're doers, right? Yeah. And they'll do it. So I give a little push in one direction or the other, and off they go. And it's and to your point, I don't need to have an hour discussion. It could be a 3-minute discussion, over a quick sit down, and like, hey, walk me through what you're thinking right there. Yeah. Hey, have you ever considered this? Think about that, and let's talk at the end of the weekend and what you learned. Yeah. And then it's just a 3-5-minute conversation. And then we're back on the plane after a 3-game series and like, hey, this is how I saw that. And they got 10 points to make. And the discussion is more of the coaching, right? Like the discussion is kind of like a back and forth, just a little push in the right direction, just to keep them moving. Because for me, I think we're always either going up or going down. We're either getting better, or we're getting worse. So we have to make that little progress.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that people in work, I found, not necessarily entrepreneurs and small business owners, but more employees. I don't know. And I can see the difference between the folks who want to just be want everything to be calm and the same all the time. Right. Yeah. And that is where I have a hard time with that because I am not that. I like being a little nervous. Right? Like I like it. Like, you know, in
comfort's a little bit of an enemy, right?
Yeah. Like I want to be a little nervous because I know we're going to get my best. I'm going to have some endorphins. There'll be a little bit of adrenaline. Like in rowing, we always say those nerves are the cocktail that gets you off the line, because starting a boat is it's a leg press. It's like all the work you've done in the gym, like is right then. Like it is a huge, powerful leg press that's hard. It's hard getting that thing off, like up to speed. So like I like that nervousness. I like feeling like I just like feeling like, man, I might like I'm on the cusp of something that could be incredible. Like I love that feeling, and I just know that like when the pressure's on, it's like, who are you going to go to, right? Who's your person? Who do you trust? And I don't know. I think that that's just the thing that I always say, like, it's good to have some adrenaline. Obviously, like you don't want to be in like panic mode at all times. And it's not panic. It's more like calm confidence. Like ego is not confidence and confidence is not ego. And how do we make sure that we understand those two? And how does that all work together? Like that's where I think business is so beautiful, because we get that opportunity. Just like, I mean, I want my doctor to feel like that too. I want like a surgeon to feel like that. Like, I think that's where people, I think sometimes ego gets a bad rap, and really it's sort of like, no, it's actually, it doesn't, like being an egotistical does not necessarily mean you have confidence. And oftentimes it's the opposite as well. So.
Yeah. I mean, I think confidence is preparation and repetition, right? Preps and reps. And so, you know, when I see people that really, I want a very confident physician, especially my brain surgeon, to be very well prepared and have done this 100,000, you know, however many times, right? Because we're confident in that. And you're very confident in driving your children around. Like you have very well prepared. You've been driving, and probably because you're a farm girl, you've probably been driving something since you were 10 years old, moving around the farm. And so that's not uncommon. Then you go through training hours. You've got tons. You don't even think twice about getting in a car and going, hey, I got to run down to the store and grab a few things. You can make a phone call. You can do all sorts of things while you're monitoring 150 different items, all while you're never thinking like, oh, where does the key go? Which one's the accelerator? Like, you know, we're not thinking any of that because we're so confident in that. And so people will often mistake confidence for arrogance, but that's not necessarily the case. It's just an extreme level of confidence exudes, and we want that in a lot of situations.
Yeah, I'm here for that. Confidence equals prep and rep. I'm here for that.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. All right, cool. So let's talk about trust, because you kind of mentioned that in your last kind of statement there, which is really important because, you know, what you're doing now, a fifth generation farmer. I mean, you've heard the stories from your parents, your grandparents, and maybe your great grandparents. You know, food quality has changed. Standards have changed. What's happening in the market is somewhat despicable, right? Like we have a massive amount of food allergies in the States, in North America, that have gone off the rails. And when we see evidence of this as people travel into Europe, and all of a sudden gluten's not an issue with their bread products, and like, so what is the variance of what we're harvesting and how we're creating that from a preservative standpoint? I spent years in Illinois with the food engineers of the world, with Monsanto and a bunch of groups over there that do a lot. And I'd never heard of a food engineer until I moved to Illinois. Right? So
CPG capital.
Yeah. So it's absolutely daunting to see what's happening. And now we have a political figure in Kennedy, who's like, you got to be kidding me. Why are we allowing this stuff? We're putting poison in our bodies. It's getting crazy. Talk to me about your position on this and where you're at and what you've learned along this way.
Okay. Well, I think the first thing we should probably start with is, let's just all agree that farmers are not interested in paying chemical bills. They don't like paying chemical bills. Let's also agree that they're not interested in poisoning people.
Yeah.
Where where the rub is. I mean, I think we can probably all like feel good about that assumption, right?
I think I can. I mean, all the farmers I know, you have a very strong level of ethics standards. This is not what they're hoping for.
Okay, so let's not pin it on them doing bad things.
Okay.
I think what we really need to talk about is how the difference and the disparity between how farmers are compensated and on what versus what consumer demands are.
Okay.
And consumer health. Okay.
Yeah.
Farmers only make money on yield. So how they farm and or I should say how we farm and how we tend to our crops, you're only compensated on how many bushels, barrels, bins, or pounds you get to the acre. So you're going to do whatever opportunity you have to push that acreage. Otherwise, by the way, you're going out of business.
Yeah.
Because margins are so tight.
Yep.
So again, does a farmer want to spend thousands and thousands and tens and dozens of thousands of dollars and hundreds of thousands of dollars on chemicals to chemical companies? I do not think that is the case. Obviously, they don't want to spend that money, but they can't afford not to in a lot of cases because they won't hit their yield metrics. And if the problem is the middle trend, the problem is how squeezed farmers get and how if they don't do everything they can to push their yield and their productivity, they will go out of business. So like we talk a lot about like adapt or die. We're talking about that here and like innovation and entrepreneurialism. Okay, that is what has happened at the farmer level. So, which is completely misaligned with what consumers want. Consumers want the highest, best possibly grown product that they can afford. So then you've got this middle ground of food brands, food brokers, like basically doing everything they can to maneuver that so that they can make the cheapest product they can, in many cases, based on the least amount of money they need to pay for the ingredient. So that's where the mess is. And I mean, without being political, like I'm definitely excited to see where this conversation goes. It's probably not going to go very far unless we're really doing what we need to be doing, which is looking at some of the unions at the ports. If we're it is such a complicated disaster of a mess that it is not. So that's where I always say, like, let's blame the farmers last.
Yeah.
And also, what's the, like, are we real? Because if you are really focused on living are most Americans ready to spend 30 to 40% of their money on food like Europeans do?
Yeah.
No, we have cars and jewelry. And I mean, like, it's just not the same. Like the value alignment is not there.
Yeah. And I think the other side of this is like, there's a staggering statistic. Like in 1990, we were, 42% were growing their own, vegetables and things like that, which I think is now down to like under 2% of people, which is making a big comeback, by the way, because people are like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Food insecurity could be real, and let's get a garden going. I mean, I'll tell you that I think farmers are caught right now in an ethical dilemma, and it's a massive one because of all this, again, variables and conditions. Right. But, I can recall hearing Andy Fastow, who was the CFO of Enron from years ago. Andy Fastow was a 26-year-old CFO. Like this guy is a Ivy Leaguer coming out, brilliant. I mean, you don't become the CFO of a Fortune 10 company if you don't know what you're doing. Right. So here he's going and he's creating all this value for the company by strategically creating shell corps and doing things that are not out of alignment with the law, but was it ethically the right thing to do, right? So now this is where we're getting a crisis of farming because we're now getting into ethical issues. No one wants to spend money on chemicals, and we're getting a malalignment of how it's going to go and how we're going to get it done where people can afford it. Because like you said, I don't think America's ready to spend 35 to 40% of their revenues on their food. I don't think they're ready for it.
No, they're spending about like teens to 20%.
Yeah.
And that is right there, the rub.
Yeah, I mean,
that's why I always say, like, until we're ready to have a value-aligned conversation.
Yeah.
Are you going to pay, or are you gonna pay where your claims are on social media and everything else, and when you're shopping, are you really gonna go buy that $11 box of crackers, or are you gonna go buy the $4 box of crackers because nobody's looking?
Yeah.
I mean,
we're value menu, man. Like,
you know what I mean? Until we have that conversation, and until we are all ready to make that choice, holy cow, that's a big difference.
Well, and like, to your point, I mean, in our economy, that might, if in fact we were to jump, let's say from 15 to 35% of that cost, you know, an economic food insecurity would immediately overrun our nation. Because of that cost, right? Because of everything else that's in there, that's baked into our economy and what our cost of living is, right or wrong. You know, I'm not going to start talking about the choices we make, but it would put people absolutely in potentially a poor like condition, right? And so it's bonkers, and I don't know the answer. It's complicated, Ali.
It is really complicated. I'll tell you what. I'll just quickly break this down.
Break it down, because we got 2 minutes.
Okay. Farmers get paid by processors or mills. Processors or mills get paid by brokers, who then get paid, or brands, who then get paid by brands. Brands then get paid by consumers.
Yeah.
So what we're talking about is, are we ready to unsubsidize 7 to 10 crops that the government now is paying, corn, wheat, whatnot? So farmers who grow those crops are basically salaried workers from the government with minimal oversight. Like, that is where you break it down. So if you don't know where you're buying your food
deep, from, Ali, this is deep.
Trent, I have hours on this.
Yeah.
But this is my life's work now. This is what we work on. We are working with the farmers and the grower, packer, shippers, and the brands who want to make a difference and want to know how they can reach their consumers directly. That's right. It's better. Like, let's not leave on a dour note. It is better. And now we are doing things like Instacart marketing, and there are more apps at all of our grocery retailers, and there is more information out there. So you can push for more information. And I would just say, the more the consumers do that, the more power they take back. And then farmers will get compensated more if they know more about where their food comes from. Yeah. So that's the silver lining.
Farm to table restaurants are my favorite, right? Like, this is what I want. I want the freshest stuff, right? So I love it. This is good stuff, Ali. You know, episode number 2, and we'll go deeper.
Part 2, 3, and 5.
Yeah, we'll have to get there. Ali Cox, thank you for joining us on Winners Find a Way every Thursday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. LinkedIn Live, Facebook Live, our Leadership YouTube channel, and then we drop on full episode. No video, of course, but on Fridays we drop full podcast episode. You can check us out everywhere on all the major networks: iHeart, Spotify, Apple, etc. All your favorite podcasting networks. So Ali Cox, Noble West, former world champion, right? Yeah, and Olympian, rower, amazing, 5th generation farmer. Marketing guru. It's crazy. Entrepreneur extraordinaire. Thank you, Ali. How can they find you quickly?
Thank you. LinkedIn's a great place, Ali Cox. Also Noble West. We are noblewest.com, and on the socials.
All right. For everybody else, until next time, winners.